hearts, the light of God shines in your self-consciousness, Dracula fades away into his native nothingness, as Emmett Fox says. And when you quit giving the blood of your belief, the blood of your thought to the devil, he fades away into his native nothingness. Now again, as I say, even in the Bible, the devil is not even originally evil. You see, so there's no original evil. The devil is a fallen angel. What does that mean? A thought that has fallen from God.
Spread love, man.
Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on something pretty interesting. The devil.
Ooh.
But we're not talking about like the classic image, you know,
Yeah.
horns at a pitchfork.
Yeah.
No, we're diving into Reverend Ike's perspective on this whole idea of the devil.
Interesting.
And we've got an excerpt from one of his sermons where he really flips the script.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, so get ready to have your mind blown.
Hmm.
Reverend Ike starts right off by saying, the devil isn't even an original sinner.
Wow.
Now, that's a statement.
Yeah, that's a bold statement right off the bat.
Yeah, it is. He's not messing around.
No, he's not.
What do you think he's getting at with that? It seems like he's already kind of challenging that traditional view of the devil right from the start.
Absolutely. It's like well, it makes you question the whole idea of like inherent evil, you know?
Right.
The devil being this like ultimate source of badness.
Yeah. Instead of seeing it as just this external force of evil,
Right.
it seems like he's pointing to something deeper, something more internal maybe.
Yeah, and he uses this analogy of Dracula needing blood to survive.
Oh, yeah.
And he connects it to the devil.
I see.
So it's like the devil feeds off of something too.
Okay, so what is it that the devil needs to survive in this case?
Our negativity.
Our own darkness. I get it.
Yeah, our negative thoughts, our fears.
It's like we're giving power to the devil just by focusing on the bad stuff.
Exactly. That's what he's getting at. The more we dwell on negativity, the more we feed those devils.
Wow, that's a powerful image. And he has some other lines that really stand out too.
All right.
Like this one, every thought that we let fall from God becomes a devil and a demon to us.
Whoa. Okay, so he's saying that even our thoughts can become these devils that torment us.
Yeah, it's almost like our own thoughts can betray us in a way.
That's a powerful thought.
It is, right? And it makes me think about the traditional idea of the devil as a fallen angel.
Oh, yeah, I see the connection.
Right, like an angel who rebelled against God.
Yeah.
So maybe Reverend Ike is suggesting that our thoughts can also fall. They can become negative or destructive.
It's like they lose their divine spark.
Exactly. And when that happens, they turn into these devils that cause us so much trouble.
It's an interesting way to look at it.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
So instead of battling some external devil, maybe we're really fighting with these internal devils, the ones we create with our own minds.
I think that's what he's getting at.
Yeah.
He even says, when you fight the devil, you ignite the devil.
That's a good point. So maybe confronting those negative thoughts directly isn't the best approach.
It might actually make things worse.
Yeah, like adding fuel to the fire.
Exactly.
But then what do we do? How do we deal with these fallen angel thoughts without fighting them?
That's a good question. And it's something we'll definitely explore more as we continue our deep dive.
All right, so before we get too far ahead, let's go back to that idea of self-ignorance as the true darkness.
Okay.
He doesn't really define it directly. So what do you think self-ignorance means in this context?
Well, I think it could be a lot of things.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, like maybe you keep ignoring those red flags in a relationship.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
Or you refuse to acknowledge that you might have played a part in a conflict, you know?
Okay, so basically not being honest with yourself.
That's part of it, but it's also about not really being aware of your own thoughts, your feelings.
And how they might be impacting everything else.
Exactly.
It's like we're driving with a blindfold on.
Yeah, just reacting to everything without understanding what's really going on inside.
And that makes it so much easier for those devils, those negative thoughts and beliefs, to sneak in and take over.
Absolutely. It's like they thrive in that darkness.
So Reverend Ike's devil isn't some scary monster with a pitchfork. It's something much deeper.
It's internal. It's personal.
It's that struggle we have with ourselves.
And he even questions the idea that the devil was always evil.
Yeah, he says even the devil wasn't originally a sinner.
Wow. That makes you think about good and evil in a whole new way.
It does.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe evil isn't some inherent thing. Maybe it's something that happens.
Maybe it's a distortion of something good.
That's a really interesting idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we need to unpack that a bit more as we continue our deep dive.
Definitely.
But before we do that, let's shift gears a little and talk about some of the practical advice Reverend Ike gives us for dealing with these devils.
Okay.
He talks a lot about aligning our thoughts with our desires.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of chasing love, be love. Instead of hoping for abundance, assume abundance.
I like that.
Yeah, it's powerful stuff. What do you think he means by that?
Well, I think he's talking about really embodying those qualities we want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like not just wishing for them, but becoming them.
Exactly. It's about aligning our inner world with our outer desires.
So instead of saying, I want to be loved,
You start loving yourself
and loving others,
and acting from a place of love.
and instead of focusing on what we lack,
He focused on what we have,
Yeah.
on the abundance that's already present.
it's like we need to become the change we want to see in the world starting from within.
I love that. It's so true.
It is, isn't it? And it all comes back to that power of thought.
Our thoughts create our reality.
Yeah. It's a reminder that we have more control over our lives than we often realize.
We do. We absolutely do.
This is all so fascinating. It's really making me think about those everyday negative thoughts in a new way.
Me too.
They're not just annoyances. They're like little devils that we need to deal with.
And we can deal with them. We have the power.
We do. But how? How do we actually identify those devils and start reclaiming those fallen angels?
That's the million-dollar question.
No.
And we'll be diving into that in the next part of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. This is getting good.
I can't wait. Welcome back. It's so interesting how Reverend Ike takes this idea of the devil and he doesn't just keep it on like a personal level.
Yeah, he goes beyond just our own individual struggles.
Right, exactly. He connects it to society as a whole.
He does. He brings up the children of Israel
Oh, yeah.
and how they kept getting into trouble because they would go after other gods.
Hmm.
And then he says that a lot of Christians have more regard for what they call the devil than they do for God.
That's pretty powerful.
It is. It really makes you think, what do you think he's trying to say there with those examples? I mean,
I think it seems like he's saying that we've become so focused on the negative,
okay,
on what we don't have, on what we're afraid of.
and that we're giving all this power to those negative things.
Yeah, those
devils.
Exactly. It's like our fear and our lack of faith are actually fueling the problem.
Which takes us back to that Dracula analogy.
Oh, right.
The more we obsess over those devils, the more we feed them.
Makes sense.
I remember he said, when you fight the devil, you ignite the devil. So by trying to fight those negative things directly,
We might just be making them stronger
exactly, it's like we need to starve them out.
by shifting our focus
Yeah, by focusing on the positive.
on what we do want.
So how do we do that? How do we stop feeding those devils?
Well, Reverend Ike does give some advice on that.
Oh, yeah. He talks about agreeing with God. What does he mean by that?
I think he's talking about aligning our thoughts with those divine principles.
Like love and abundance and prosperity. So it's about embodying those things, not just hoping for them, but actually being them,
It's about changing our internal state.
so that our external reality can catch up.
Right. It's like we're creating a blueprint with our thoughts.
And then the universe follows that blueprint.
Exactly. Our thoughts are incredibly powerful.
He also talks about the importance of self-awareness, recognizing when we're falling into those negative patterns.
Right. Because like you said, the devil is mind's misunderstanding of God.
So it's about clearing up those misunderstandings, about seeing things clearly
And choosing to see the world through a lens of love and possibility.
instead of fear and scarcity.
Exactly.
There's one thing that's been on my mind, though. Reverend Ike keeps saying, I am God. And I'm like, whoa, that's a pretty bold statement.
I know, right? It's definitely attention grabbing.
It is. How are we supposed to understand that in the context of what we've been talking about? I mean,
Well, it's important to remember that Reverend Ike has a very unique theological perspective.
okay, so he's not saying we're all literally God.
Right. It's more about recognizing the divine spark within each of us.
Oh, that connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly.
So when he says, I am God, he's also talking about the power of our thoughts.
Yeah. Like if we truly believe in our own divinity, in our ability to create positive change,
Then we can tap into this incredible source of power.
and overcome those devils that are holding us back.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Right.
But it's still a lot to take in.
Yeah.
You know,
It's deep stuff.
this whole idea that the devil is an internal struggle, That our thoughts have so much power. It's
It is heavy, but it's also empowering.
How so?
Because if the devil is within us,
Then so is the power to overcome it.
exactly, we're not victims of some outside force.
We have the power to choose our thought.
And create the reality we want.
I love that. It's like Reverend Ike is giving us a roadmap
To freedom.
to taking back control of our lives.
Absolutely.
This has been such an eye-opening deep dive. I'm starting to see those little negative thoughts that pop up every day.
Like those little devils.
Yeah. And now I realize that they actually need to be addressed.
We can't just ignore them.
But how do we do that? What are some practical steps we can take?
Well, the first step is awareness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which goes back to what Reverend Ike was saying.
Right. He said, the devil can only operate in the darkness of self-ignorance.
So we have to shine a light on those negative thoughts.
Bring them into our conscious awareness.
We need to examine them,
Yeah.
understand where they're coming from.
Become detectives of our own minds.
I like that. So once we've identified those devils,
Then we can start to challenge them.
okay. So we ask ourselves, are these thoughts really true?
Are they helping us? Or are they just holding us back?
It's like putting those thoughts on trial.
Seeing if they have any real evidence to back them up.
And if they don't,
Then we can choose something different.
we can replace those negative thoughts with more positive ones.
With thoughts that align with love, abundance, prosperity.
With those godly thoughts.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that we have so much more power than we often realize.
We do. We have the power to choose.
Before we jump into the practical steps, let's just take a moment to recap what we've learned so far from Reverend Ike.
Okay.
We've talked about how the devil isn't necessarily some external being
But an internal struggle.
that we all face.
Right. And we've explored the incredible power of our thoughts.
How they can either nourish those devils or starve them.
And we've seen how Reverend Ike's unique perspective can empower us.
To take back control of our minds.
And create a reality that reflects our true desires.
This has been such a rich and thought-provoking conversation. And now it's time to turn our attention to you, our listeners. We're going to leave you with a question to ponder as we move into the final part of our deep dive. If our thoughts are so powerful, what are the devils we might be unknowingly feeding in our own lives? What fallen angels might we need to reclaim?
It's a big question.
It is. It's a deep one.
Yeah. But it's worth asking.
Definitely. Because if we don't even realize what those devils are.
Then we can't really do anything about them, can we?
Exactly. So what are some examples? What kinds of devils might people be dealing with without even knowing it?
Well, it's different for everyone, right?
Right, of course. But there are probably some common ones.
Yeah, definitely. Like fear of failure, for instance.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Huge. Or maybe it's those thoughts of not being good enough.
I'm not worthy. I'm not capable.
Exactly. Those kinds of thoughts can really hold us back.
And they can be so subtle sometimes, we might not even realize they're there.
They just become part of the background noise of our minds.
Until they're not. Until they
Okay.
start causing real problems.
Exactly.
So how do we start reclaiming those fallen angels? Where do we even begin?
Well, it all starts with awareness. Like Reverend Ike said, the devil can only operate in the darkness of self-ignorance.
So shining a light on those negative thought patterns is crucial
It's the first step.
to disempowering them.
Yeah, we have to bring them into the light of our conscious awareness.
So we need to pay attention to our thoughts, really examine them, and understand where they're coming from.
And it's not always easy.
No, it can be uncomfortable sometimes.
Definitely. But it's necessary.
So once we've identified those thoughts,
Then we can start to challenge them.
okay, how do we do that?
Well, we can ask ourselves, is this thought really true?
Is it serving me?
Or is it just holding me back?
It's like we're putting those thoughts on trial,
Examining the evidence.
seeing if they can stand up to scrutiny.
Exactly.
And if they can't,
Then we choose something different.
we choose to believe something more empowering,
Something that aligns with our true selves.
something that reflects those godly qualities that Reverend Ike was talking about,
Love, abundance, prosperity.
instead of fear and lack and limitation.
Right. It's a conscious choice.
It is. It's a choice we have to make every single day.
And sometimes every single moment.
Because those devils are sneaky. They're always trying to creep back in
They are. But we have the power to say no.
to choose something better.
And the more we practice,
The easier it gets.
yeah, it becomes a habit
A habit of choosing love over fear, abundance over lack.
of aligning our thoughts with our truest desires.
This has been such a powerful deep dive. Reverend Ike's perspective on the devil is so unique and thought-provoking
It really challenges us to think differently.
about ourselves, about the world, about the nature of good and evil,
And it ultimately empowers us to take control of our own lives.
to become the masters of our own minds.
Exactly.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you've gained some valuable insights.
And that you're inspired to start reclaiming those fallen angels in your own life.
Remember, you have the power to choose. So choose wisely. And until next time, keep diving deep.